So when we're in a state of confusion or discomfort or some response to our environment like anger, fear, sadness, shame, guilt, there's there's a combination of what's happening between our memory system getting pinged off of and what's happening in the current environment. Most of the time, we've locked in on a previous coping pattern that hijacks our system, and then we don't realize that we have any kind of control whatsoever. The truth is, though, if when we're little and stuff happens to us and we develop these coping mechanisms, those become habituated, those become standardized in our nervous system. So what that means is later in life, if something even slightly resembles, remember our memory system is what's influencing our state of mind in any given moment when we're triggered. That memory system can get adjusted, it can get tweaked. And so in the moments of high extreme reaction, when our system gets hijacked, we need ways of unplugging that. And one of the ways I'm going to encourage you is through orientation. Now let's define what orientation means. So imagine you walk into the woods and you scan, you look around, and naturally your body will do that because it's afraid of like bears or some kind of, like foreign thing that might threaten our existence. So we naturally do that. If you watch animals in the wild, let's say you see a herd of deer or elk grazing, there'll be several of them that they'll eat for a moment or two, then they'll look around, they'll scan their environment. And what's happening is they're orienting towards safety. They want to know that it's safe. If you look at birds or little critters on the ground, they do the same thing. They're always like, their head's going like this. Why? Because we're hardwired, even as human beings, to guarantee our safety. So orienting is one of your portals into healing long-term issues that keep threatening your happiness. Remember, our litmus test is, am I experiencing pleasure right now? Now, are we always going to experience pleasure? No. But what happens is with people, when they have a lot of trauma early in life, they have a propensity to attract more trauma to them, and they stay stuck in these cycles of pain and suffering that are unnecessary if they have the right skills to get out of those cycles. One of the ways to get out of the cycle is practice orienting. I've talked about this in previous videos, and I want to thank Steve Hodgkinson in the organic intelligence community for this concept. Now, I originally learned part of it in somatic experiencing, which is Peter Levine's program, but in the end of trauma program that really anchored in deeper the whole concept of orientation. And I think it's worth like taking it as one of your core tools to use every single day. And that tool is you just take breaks throughout the day so you get a new baseline of pleasure, of where you're at in any given moment. Otherwise, our unconscious mind is driving us and directing us, and that's not always a good thing. If you're happy with the results you're getting, great. You can stop this video right now and just move on with your life. But if there's some party that keeps caught up in these cycles and at the end of every day you feel pretty exhausted, it may feel normal to you, like life is really hard, I feel exhausted, but I'm telling you that's not what should be normal. And I think our society has reached a pinnacle of, on the far end, let's use this side, is the negative. Like we've become over-fixated on buying. We've become over-fixated on avoiding pain by buying stuff and, just ignoring our consequences with each other and ignoring, we've exasperated the issue around, fake news and conspiracy theories. And really what's happening is that nervous system in many of us in the global population is so conditioned to reacting to fear, we don't even know that we're playing right into it. So one of the intentions that I have as a coach is to contribute to a world that's more grounded and has a different kind of baseline in their life around, what does calmness actually mean, and what are the consequences of directing our mind in such a way that we're in charge of the states of mind that we end up in day to day throughout our day. So orientation is one of the portals to doing this. So right now, what you can do is pause this video, and what you can do is just stop, let your eyes just wander. Think of a newborn baby, and what do? They're born, as long as they haven't had trauma, because babies get a lot of trauma at birth. But let's just assume they had a nice birth and everything's cool with mom and all of that. And what they'll do is their eyes will just wander in like awe and amazement. So try it on right now. Just pause the video and just look around and let your eyes, don't start making meaning, because let's go back to the beginning stages of our life when we weren't making meaning. We were trying to, but the brain wasn't developed yet enough to know what was what. So you just look at objects, and you look at colors, and you look at shapes, and you look at just objects. So let your mind just wander. And my encouragement is to find a rhythm and a pace that feels really, really good to you. So do that for 10, 20 seconds throughout your day, and then notice what shifts inside of you. Notice if you feel a little bit calmer. Even a small amount of calmness is different from maybe the way you felt, a minute before that. And then the second level is to do the same thing, but this time look for one thing that looks pleasurable, that draws your attention. Like for me, I love crystals and stones, and I have a windowsill over here to my left, and there's a pink quartz and a purple amethyst. And oh my gosh, those two combinations are so beautiful that when I look at them, I can just feel this like layer in my body of just peace and love and openness and joy. And so now I'm practicing hanging out with that because it's pleasurable, right? So that's what we're looking for. We use pleasure as our compass to guide us throughout the day. Now, I'm not discounting that sometimes we do things that we know we need to do that are painful, but that should not be the norm. I'm talking about establishing a new baseline for yourself of doing things that are pleasurable. And I'm not talking about coping mechanisms like, things that we do, like we overeat or we do drugs or we find excuses to smoke marijuana because it reduces pain, and, or we go to porn sites or whatever happens that's in avoidance of the pain that we're feeling. I'm not talking about that kind of pleasure. Those are temporary fixes that are an attempt to try to re-regulate the nervous system. What I'm talking about is building, instead of this house of cards that a lot of us have, is rebuilding a very solid foundation in your nervous system by learning to orient and get a new baseline day in and day out. And what'll start happening is you'll recognize the moment you go above that pleasure threshold and you're like, uh-oh, I'm pushing myself right now. Uh-oh, my body actually doesn't want this, even though, I keep pushing, I'm overriding. Now, sometimes, like I said, you may need to do that because you're trying to meet the deadline of a project or something, but do it consciously. Just say to yourself, yeah, I'm going to work extra hours right now and I'm really tired, but I know the payoff is going to be worth it. But don't make that the norm. Otherwise, your nervous system is finally going to say, like, you're traumatizing me. You're making things worse. And, I can see you, sacrificing once in a while, but now you're making that the norm, and that's not okay with me. Now you're going to start creating environments for disease, for, certain, genes in your DNA to get triggered, and then you inherit, problems from the past because you've created this toxic environment for yourself to not, be in a high state of recovery, a high state of peace, a high state of joy in these cycles of growth that we're all wanting to have as we age. I don't know about you, but as I age, I want to have a really good health. I want to, like, instead of lifespan, which is where most focus is, I want to have a really good health span. I want my health to be, really clear. So at the end of my life, I can just go, oh, it's time for me to go. Not because I have some big disease of some kind that takes me out and knocks me off the map. So orientation is your gateway. It's one of the gateways to finding your new level of ground zero. You start out by just looking at objects, and then find that, like, look for that new sense of peace that shows up. And the more you repeat this, the more you'll unhook from the states of mind that we get triggered in when we start working too many hours, we start doing too much, we don't eat right, we don't sleep right, we don't exercise right. And then all of that combination of things create states of minds that does nothing but create more confusion. And then we just resort to coping mechanisms, just do our very best to get through a day. And then at some point we hit around 38, 39, 40, maybe earlier, and we go through a midlife crisis. Why? Because our brain is exhausted from doing these kinds of things that are not like in a nice, coherent feedback loop. So part of it is we want to reconnect the brain with the body, so we have this nice feedback loop, and that guides us as a compass. Like, use your body, use your joy, use your sense of happiness and pleasure as the compass. If you're not in pleasure, if you're not in joy, then something's not right, and it's your job to stop, to orient, say, okay, let me get a new baseline. So first level is just looking at objects for 30 seconds, a minute. Second level is looking at objects and then find pleasure. Find the one thing that when you look at it, you go, oh yeah, there it is. There's that little inkling of pleasure. I like that color. I like the shape. I like, the memories that it evokes, whatever it is. And then focus on the sensations of that pleasure as your baseline. Hang out there for 10 or 15 seconds. And then ask yourself, what do I want? What do I want next that would bring me pleasure? What moves me in the direction of pleasure? All right, hope that's helpful. This is a session on orienting and the importance of orienting to get out of these loops that keep us stuck day in and day out, that keep pain alive, that keep misery alive, and that keep us from really connecting and seeing the beauty and the value of differentiation that exists amongst each one of us and all things in the world. We need to see the beauty in that. We need to see that love is embedded in all of that awe and all of the beauty of creation itself. So I hope that's useful. Many blessings. See you in the next lesson.